From Node.js version 4, it supports many ES6 features. These features help us write simpler and easy-to-read and safer codes. Like Q&A video series, it is a mini-series of ES6 features. You can skip these videos if you are already good at ES6. When writing code with JavaScript, we use a lot of callback functions. However, it's sometimes really bulky and ugly. Take a look at this code. As you can see, callback functions only increases a value, but it needs function, keyword, and parentheses, braces, and return keyword, etc. It's really complicated. Then, isn't it better if we write those callback functions simpler? The question created fat arrow function. Let's begin our ES6 journey with fat arrow functions. Some people love to call this as just arrow functions, so I added parentheses around fat. Fat arrow functions uses this symbol. It uses equal, not a hyphen, so it got its name because the body of the arrow is fat. Okay, let's learn how to use fat arrow functions by changing good old function statements to fat arrow functions. The code on the left side are the function definitions we use every day. As you can see, there is an add function that add 3 arguments and inc function that only increases a single value, and it has only 7 function that returns 7 and with no argument. There is an error function with 2 arguments and multiple lines of code. And there's tuple function that returns an object. And I added console.log statements to check the return values of the functions above. Okay, let's check the results by running the code. Type in node, enter. The result is just what we expected. Then let's change our code to fat arrow functions one by one. Let's start with our add function. Declare the variable add and type in parentheses a, b, c and fat arrow and a plus b plus c. It's done. As you can see, it's much simpler than old function keyword syntax. Let's check that it works correctly. I copied this console.log function statement here and I run the code node syntax.arrow.js and press enter. As you can see, it returns number 6 correctly. Okay, let's move on to our next function, inc. As inc has only a single argument, you can even remove parentheses like this. And it's done. Let's check it out by copying the code from the left side and move it to the right side. And I ran the code and it works as we expected. However, if you wanted, you can add parentheses like this. There's no problem. And if I run the code again, it works correctly. Personally, I prefer the code without parentheses because it looks simpler. Let's move on to our third function, only 7. You might think that you can even remove parentheses because it has no argument. But if we did that, you can see this red line because there is a syntax error. When you write a function without any argument, you should add empty parentheses like this. And let's copy our only 7 code from the left side and copy it to the right side. And run the code again. It's working correctly. And let's move on to our fourth function, arrow function. If you want to write arrow function with multiple lines, then you should use braces like this. Var error equals, and I copy it, and you should add arrow here. As you can see, the syntax is somewhat similar with function keyword function. And we can check the result like as it did before. Copy it, paste it, and run it. It's what we expected. Let's move on to our final function, tuple. As we did before, type in var tuple equals Can you see these red lines? It means that it has syntax error. It's because when compiler says brace after fat arrow, it thinks that it's a function. So compiler thinks that our tuple function is a function with syntax error. So what we should do here is add parentheses around the object. Then it works correctly. Let's copy our final console.log statement and copy to the right side and run it again. As you can see, we changed our code correctly. When you read ES6 code, you will sometimes meet code like this, with multiple fat arrows. When I first saw this code, I thought it's a bit weird and I cannot understand it fast. But it's really simple. Let's change the code one by one. First, let's change the second fat arrow like this. And let's change our first fat arrow. Can you see it? It's just a function that returns a function. It looks hard because you are not familiar with fat arrows. Fat arrow functions are really simpler than function keyword functions. So many people love it. Some people ask me, are fat arrow functions simpler version of old syntax functions? In most cases, it's yes. However, when it comes to this variable in functions, then it has huge difference. I'll tell you the reasons. Let's look at this code. It's a timer function that returns how many seconds have passed since it is called. Will it work correctly? Let's check by learning it. Type in node timer word. Enter. As you can see, what we want is 1 second has passed, 2 seconds has passed, 3 seconds has passed. But everything you can see is 9 seconds has passed. 9 here means not a number. This isn't what we want. Let's kill the program by pressing Ctrl+C. And let's get back to our code. This is happening because every function defines its own this variable. So this on the line 2 and this on the line 5 and 6 are different variables. Then how should we solve this problem? What we should do is to declare self variable and assign it with this. And we should use self here. Then let's learn this code again. As you can see, we can see the numbers are increasing correctly. Kill the program by pressing Ctrl+C. We solved the problem, but it looks really awkward and a bit unnatural. Then how can you write the code in more natural way? The answer is to use arrow function. Let's copy this code from left to right and remove self variable and change self to this. We went back to our first code and let's remove function keyword and add fat arrow. The thing only changed is that I changed function keyword function to fat arrow function. Let's check that this new version with fat arrow function works correctly. Type in node timer arrow.js. Enter. As you can see, it works correctly. I killed the program with Ctrl+C. It's because fat arrow function uses this variable from outer function. then you might want to use fetArrow function every time, but it can cause some other problems. Let's look at this code. There are two objects, O1 and O2. The only difference between them is the O1 used function keyword in add function and O2 used fetArrow function. Then the result of these two objects will be same. Let's check it out by running it. Type in node object comparison and enter. The O1 returned 3 as you expected, but O2 returned none. It's not expected. Then why did that happen? As said before, fetArrow function uses this from outer function. So this variable in fetArrow function of the O2 object doesn't refer to O2 object. So this variable doesn't have field A or B. That's why the result is none. Let's review what we have learned. To make fetArrow function, we should remove function keyword and add fetArrow between arguments and body. You can remove parentheses if there is a single argument. And you can remove braces if it is a single line object. Finally, you can return an object. You should wrap it with parentheses. Arrow functions make writing callback functions easier because it doesn't define this variable. However, if it is used as object function, you will meet unexpected values from this variable. We learned what fetArrow function is, so let's change our add function in calc module with fetArrow function. All we have to do is remove function and return keyword, remove these braces, and add fetArrow. It's done. And let's check it out, it works correctly. cd double dot and cd first module, enter, and node index app.js and press enter. As you can see our add function works correctly. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.